Hello, I'm Rebecca Flaherty, and this week I've got another free trailing floral template for you. I really need to think of a new name for that because that is so hard to say. This week we're going to be making this pattern here, and you can get the free template from the Pattern Makers Toolkit over on my website, and the links for everything I'll mention today are all in the video description. For accessibility, all of my tutorials have got fully edited subtitles, and the chapters are marked out in the description if you want to go ahead and skip to the beginning of the tutorial. These trailing floral template tutorials are all slightly more advanced levels, so if you've not made a pattern using the diamond method before in Procreate, or you're quite new to them, then I suggest checking out this video first, as it covers everything in a lot more detail and at a much slower pace. I've also got lots of beginner-friendly pattern tutorials on my channel too, which will help you get off to a great start if you want to make patterns this way in Procreate. So let's get started. I'm using the Pattern Maker canvas here. This is a 12-inch square canvas at 300 dpi. If you don't have the Pattern Maker canvas, you can still follow along. Just make yourself a new document in those dimensions, 12 inches square, 300 dpi. And then on an empty layer, you just need to draw a diamond like this one, and it needs to go all the way off the edges of the canvas. Make it fancy and precise, or it can be just as rough as this. As long as it goes off the edges, you're good to go. So I'm going to delete that one here because I already have one in the sketch folder here, this sketch diamond. So the first thing we're going to do is bring in our free template. So bring in that from wherever you have it saved. And that should go underneath your sketch diamond. That's going to be the easiest way to do this. So I'm going to start on the Draw Here First layer. And this week, instead of drawing flowers in these spots, I'm going to actually just draw some extra leaves. So we're going to take this in a slightly different direction and just make this not necessarily a floral pattern, because it's not going to have flowers in it. It's going to be a leafy pattern. I don't know what the fancy word for that is, but there we go. So because I'm changing things up slightly, I am going to draw all of this in the sketch layer. So on my Draw Here First layer, I'm just going to I'll use my fun sketcher brush and a nice bright pink colour so you can see what we're doing. And instead of stamping or drawing flowers in these circles, we're going to just add some leaves. So I'll kind of make one come up here, and I'm going to make sets of like 3 leaves that sort of plume out like that. I'm going to do that for each one of these flowers, or at least each one of these spots for flowers. So with this template, all the black bits are the bits we'll draw. The blue bits we'll make by repeating the black bits, and then these pink bits we'll do in the extra folder later. So we're just going to do this sketching in all of these circles here, trying to stick mostly within the boundaries of the circle. And then once you've got all of those sketched in, I'm going to duplicate this around the edges of the canvas so that we can make sure everything's lining up nicely and not kind of crossing over something where it shouldn't be. So this layer here, we're going to merge it down with our sketch diamond now. Then we're going to swipe to duplicate, tap to transform. I've got snapping and magnetics on and both turned all the way up there. And then I'm going to drag this up and over to the left. Duplicate the bottom layer again and drag it down and to the left, and each time I do this I'm making sure I've got those orange lines intersecting there so that I know it's snapping into place properly. And then we repeat that over this side. It doesn't matter which order you do these, you could start in this corner, then do that one and that one. It's just whichever way you've got your muscle memory built out. So once all of those are done, you can pinch those top 4 layers together, and now we've got these outside bits on one layer and the middle bits on the other layer. This top layer, so that I can keep track of what's what, I'm going to invert the colours on there. So once you've done your first sketch layer, you have the opportunity to have a look and make sure you've got no bits that have gone like too far towards any of the other motifs. So places I'm going to need to keep an eye on is this here. Make sure I don't, when I draw this leaf in, extend it too far so that it comes out past there. So once we're at this stage, we're ready to start illustrating our motifs. So I can collapse my sketch layer and turn my pattern group on now. And then on this layer here, I'm going to start by drawing in this stem here. You'll see on your template, this one's green. And this is the one that makes it a trailing floral pattern. So this is the edge of our tile here, and it crosses over one edge and then continues over the other. So we need to get this one in first, and then once that's in place, everything else can fit around it. So let's use something bright so that you can see easily. So I'm going to start up here, come down and finish down here where the green line finishes, and stick as closely as I can to the green line. You can do this all in one smooth fluid stroke, so much the better. And then once you've got that line in place, put a line coming off each of these corners, duplicate that layer, tap to transform, and then we're going to drag this down and snap it into that corner there. And then if we zoom in here, you'll see the top of that part there is where the end of this part merges in. And actually I've done an okay job of getting those to line up quite nicely there. But if yours were looking a bit wonky and wobbly, the way to fix that and merge them together, come down to your bottom layer, the one with this on it, erase up a bit, and then redraw this line and just merge it in like that. Then you can get rid of this top layer, and then we can just draw in all of the other stems on this layer now. And then I'm going to draw in some of these leaf shapes, and we'll do that on a layer underneath, and I'll use this purple colour. So all of the leaves that are just single leaves coming off the stem, I'm going to do this on this layer, and I'm also going to do the outside, the left and right leaves of each of these kind of flowery leaf ones. I'm going to do those on this layer as well. And then this one here in the middle, I'm going to do on a layer above. So I'm just going to go around and do all of these leaf shapes on this layer first. And then once we've colour dropped that, we need to go and fix those little halos we get there like we always do. So duplicate this layer, Gaussian blur from our adjustments panel, and set a Gaussian blur of 3%. Then you can hide this layer. Select tool, automatic selection, and tap anywhere in the outside space. Adjust your threshold so you come in past the edge of your shape but not past the edge of this line we're trying to fill. And you can invert the selection, add a layer, and tap to fill it. And that's going to fill all of that space inside all of those shapes for us. And you can delete the hidden blurred layer and pinch those two together. Now I'm going to add a layer above, and using a different colour just so I can keep track of what I'm doing, I'm going to do these middle leaf shapes on this layer. So that's all of those leaves filled, and the edges are fixed with that Gaussian blur technique. I think now I'm going to alpha lock this layer and change it to the same colour as the leaves are at the moment. And then what I want to do is add a little bit of colour variation to all of these leaves. So I'm going to alpha lock this layer, and in this brush set here, Summer Icons brush set, also this is in the Pattern Maker Toolkit on my website for free, so you can go and grab this and use this colour changer brush here. And what I'm going to do is set my primary colour as this purple, and then my secondary colour, I'm going to grab something else like this pink here. So I've got like a light purple, this colour here, and then a pink for my secondary colour. So what this colour changer brush is, it kind of shifts the hue from like in between these two parameters. So it could be anything in between this pink and this purple, and it's random each time you use it. So like if I make a stroke here, it's kind of not much different to that purple, and then you can make another one and it's like pink, pink again. These are all coming out quite pink, but then you will get some that are more towards the purpley end. So what I'm going to do, I might change this purple to something a bit more purpley, a bit darker, and just see how that comes out. The differences we get there. So what I'm going to do is colour each one of these, colour each one of these leaves a slightly different colour so that we've got a nice mix of colours going on throughout this layer. The thing you need to do is be careful to keep your colouring in the lines. You can see where I did that one and it's gone onto this one, so you would need to then just make sure you fix that one, and to do each leaf with one stroke. So for example, if you do this and then lift up, you're not going to get the same colour again when you touch down again. So you need to commit to doing each leaf with the same shade like that. I'm just going to work my way through recolouring all of these leaves like that. So now you can see we've got that beautiful variation in colour going on with the leaves on this layer. I'm going to do the same to the ones above. So alpha lock that layer, and then we can just do these as well. Now that I've changed the colour on these leaves, I think I'm going to change the colour of the stems to this lovely golden colour. And then I'm going to add a bit of shading variation to the leaves. So on my bottom layer, I'll add a layer, make it a clipping mask, and I'm going to have a go and see what this blue comes out like if I apply that on there. So I might try using the shading crayon for this one. I'm just going to add a touch of this blue to the bottom of all of these leaves like that. And then we'll repeat that on the upper layer as well. And then I'm going to try adding a slightly different colour again to the ends of these leaves. So come back down to your bottom leaves, add a layer, and I'm going to have an experiment and see what could work with these. I think orange might be a bit of a push too far. Oh no, actually, I quite like that. So I'm going to add a touch of orange onto the ends of these leaves. And then again, repeat that on this set of leaves as well. And then over the top of the highest clipping mask on this bottom layer, I'm going to add another layer again, clip this one down. I'm going to change the blend mode to colour burn and the opacity to 40%. And I'm going to grab this 50% grey colour, and again with the shading crayon I'm just going to make the middles of these leaves a little bit darker. And what I'm going to do is go over the do it where it would be on this leaf here, because then I can just duplicate this layer and apply it to that layer as well, rather than having to draw them in again. So what this is doing is just increasing the intensity of the bottom bits there. So then I can duplicate this layer, drag it up here to above those, and it will clip down to those as well. So now we've got that on this layer too. Then I'm going to add another layer underneath this colour burn and make this blend mode colour dodge and also 40%. And then again with the 50% grey colour, I'm just going to use that to lighten the tops of some of these leaves a little bit. And then again duplicate this layer and apply it to those leaves as well. Then what I'm going to do is duplicate this colour dodge one more time and apply it to the stems as well. So let's clip that down, and then that's just going to lighten the tops of the stems there, because they kind of fade in a bit there, so that will just make them a little bit more visible. So I think that's looking almost finished now. The last thing we need to do is, as always, this extra bit on the sides. So to do that, we're going to swipe down with 3 fingers and copy all. Then we turn on our extra group, tap on this layer here, swipe down again, and tap paste. That's brought in a flattened copy of everything now. I can turn off my textures. We don't need double textures on there. I'm going to duplicate this layer, tap it, and drag it over to the side and snap it into place there. And then this bottom one we can snap over to this side. And if I zoom in there, you'll see instead of a diamond, we now have an X shape, and that's brought these edges into the middle. Pinch those together, and then we can draw this on without being off the edges now. So now I'm going to illustrate this on here, merging it in with this. So once you've got that merged in down there, all you need to do is just repeat the illustration steps, the shading and line work, etc. for filling in these 2 leaves. So I'll just whiz ahead and do that now. Magic. So now we can hide this extra layer and we can start building out our pattern tile. So on my pattern group, I'm going to hide this pattern marker, close the group, and you can either duplicate your whole pattern group or you can hide the background colour and your sketch. Swipe down with 3 fingers, copy all, come up to the top here, swipe down again and paste. And now we've got a flattened version of that. Turn that off for a second, put our extra group on. We can hide these two. And I'm going to duplicate and flatten that group, but if you don't have enough spare layers to duplicate a whole group, you could use the same way of copying all and pasting as we did there. So now we can turn our background on and just hide that layers folder. We need to put this back over to the edges, so I'll un-alpha lock that and just put a mark off the edge of each of the corners there. Duplicate that, drag that over to the side, and the bottom one will drag over to the other side, and you need to be checking both of those have snapped into place properly, and then you can pinch to merge those together. Just erase that extra mark there. So now those are back on the edges of the canvas where they're supposed to be, but we still have the version with the layers in our layers folder. I'm going to turn on this layer now, and we can pinch to merge those together, and you can see that's nicely blended in there. So now we can duplicate this around the canvas the same way we did with our sketch layers. It's already got the marks on the corner here, so we can just duplicate this and move it around. And there we go, that is our finished pattern tile. All that we need to do now is turn on our texture layers. And I think I'm going to change the background colour to something really dark for this, because I think that's going to look really good. So let's change the background colour to something like that maybe. And then that blue really contrasts with the gold and just makes everything sing. I don't know, I just love it. So the great thing about using this diamond repeat method means you don't get gaps when you upload to Spoonflower and do your proof test. But before we save and export, we're still going to do a test to make sure the pattern repeat is working. So I'm going to swipe down with 3 fingers and copy all. Come up to the top here, swipe down again and tap paste. And then because this is a dark pattern, normally I put a black layer underneath a lighter colour pattern. Under this one, I'm going to put a white layer. And then if there's any gaps or seams in the tile, that white will show through as a contrast against the dark, and we'll be able to see if we've got any gaps in there. So on this layer here, tap to transform, and I'm going to drag this up here and snap it up into this corner, and you'll see 1800 pixels there. Then we can duplicate this layer, snap it into this corner, and we can zoom in there and make sure that we've got nothing suspicious going on there. Pinch those two together, duplicate, and then snap this one down there, and again just check the edge there to make sure that everything's looking okay. Can pinch those two together now. Don't forget you can get the colour changer brush and this free template when you join the Pattern Makers Toolkit. It's like a Patreon group, but even better, it's free to join. You get access to all the resources in the Pattern Makers Toolkit on my website, including those I make for Skillshare classes, early access to some YouTube tutorials and drawing prompts, discounts in my Etsy store, and one new freebie exclusively via email every month. And talking of my Etsy store, that is where you'll find the Pattern Maker canvas and brush set, as well as some premium trailing floral template sets just like the one we've used today. If you want to learn more about my Procreate to Photoshop workflow using automations and smart objects, you can find a course on that over on Skillshare. If you're new to Skillshare and you sign up using the link below, you'll get an extra 30 days free. All the links for everything I've mentioned today are in the description, and don't forget to subscribe here if you want to see more pattern tutorials like this every week. That's all from me today. Have fun, stay creative, and I will see you next time.